Chapter 15 Unemployment. The purpose of Chapter 15 is to introduce you to the labor market. We will see how economists measure the performance of the labor market using unemployment statistics. Unemployment statistics are produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, based on a monthly survey of 60,000 households, approximately 100,000 individuals, and based on the adult population, that is 16 years or older. The BLS places each adult into one of three categories: employed, unemployed, and not in the labor force. Those considered employed are paid employees, full-time and part-time workers, in their own business, and temporarily absent, such as vacation, illness, bad weather, and maternity or paternity leave. Those considered unemployed are those who were not employed but are available for work and try to find employment during the previous 4 weeks, and those who are waiting to be recalled to a job after being laid off. Those considered not in the labor force are not employed and not unemployed, such as full-time students, homemakers, such as housewife or house husband, and retirees. Remember that those who are under 16 years of age or they represent the minority are not included in the adult population. As such, they are not included in the labor force either. Let's delve into the formulas. Labor force is the total number of workers including both employed and unemployed. Labor force equals number of employed plus number of unemployed. Unemployment rate is the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed. Unemployment rate equals number of unemployed divided by labor force times 100%. Labor force participation rate is the percentage of the adult population that is in the labor force. Labor force participation rate equals labor force divided by adult population times 100%. This figure shows the data from December 2021. In that month, there were 156 million employed and 6.3 million unemployed. The labor force can be taken by summing the number of employed and the number of unemployed. That is 156 million plus 6.3 million equals 162.3 million. Then we can calculate the unemployment rate by taking the number of unemployed divided by labor force. That is 6.3 million divided by 162.3 million times 100% equals 3.9%. Because the adult population was 262.1 million, the labor force participation rate can be calculated by taking labor force divided by adult population. That is 162.3 million divided by 262.1 million times 100% equals 61.9%. Here is an exercise. Compute the labor force, unemployment rate, adult population, and labor force participation rate using this data. Number of employed is 158.3 million, number of unemployed is 5.7 million, and number of not in labor force is 100.1 million. Let's start with computing the labor force by summing the number of employed and the number of unemployed. That is 158.3 million plus 5.7 million equals 164 million. Next, the unemployment rate can be found by dividing the number of unemployed by the labor force, then multiplying by 100%. So we take 5.7 million divided by 164 million times 100% equals 3.5%. Then the adult population can be found by summing the number of labor force and the number of not in labor force. So we take 164 million plus 100.1 million equals 264.1 million. Lastly, the labor force participation rate can be found by dividing the number of labor force by the number of adult population, then multiplying by 100%. So we take 164 million divided by 264.1 million times 100% equals 62.1%. This table presents other measures of labor underutilization calculated by the BLS. U1 is persons unemployed 15 weeks or longer. as a percent of the civilian labor force includes only very long-term unemployed. U2 is job losers and persons who have completed temporary jobs as a percent of the civilian labor force excludes job leavers. U3 is total unemployed as a percent of the civilian labor force. This is the official unemployment rate. U4 is total unemployed plus discouraged workers as a percent of the civilian labor force plus discouraged workers. U5 is total unemployed plus all marginally attached workers as a percent of the civilian labor force plus all marginally attached workers. And U6 is total unemployed plus all marginally attached workers plus total employed part-time for economic reasons as a percent of the civilian labor force plus all marginally attached workers. Please note that discouraged workers are the individuals who would like to work but have given up looking for a job. Marginally attached workers are the people who are neither working nor looking for work but indicate that they want and are available for a job and have looked for work sometime in the recent past. And persons employed part-time for economic reasons are those who want and are available for full-time work but have had to settle for a part-time schedule. Now let's take on this exercise. Using the data provided in the table, calculate the following unemployment measures: U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, and U6. To find U1, we take the number of persons unemployed 15 weeks or longer divided by the number of civilian labor force. That is 1.6 divided by 100 and times 100%, which equals 1.6%. U2, we take the number of job losers and persons who have completed temporary jobs, excludes job leavers, divided by the number of civilian labor force. That is 3.1 divided by 100 and times 100%, which equals 3.1%. U3, we take the number of unemployed divided by the number of civilian labor force. That is 6.2 divided by 100 and times 100%, which equals 6.2%. U4, we take the number of unemployed plus discouraged workers divided by the number of civilian labor force plus discouraged workers. That is 7 divided by 100 plus 0.8 and times 100%, which equals 6.9%. Note that the number of discouraged workers comes from the total number of unemployed plus discouraged workers minus the total number of unemployed. That is 7 minus 6.2 equals 0.8. U5, we take the number of unemployed plus all marginally attached workers divided by the number of civilian labor force plus all marginally attached workers. That is 8.1 divided by 100 plus 1.9 and times 100%, which equals 7.9%. Note that the number of marginally attached workers comes from the total number of unemployed plus all marginally attached workers minus the total number of unemployed. That is 8.1 minus 6.2 equals 1.9. U6, we take the number of unemployed plus all marginally attached workers plus total employed part-time for economic reasons divided by the number of civilian labor force plus all marginally attached workers. That is 9.2 divided by 100 plus 1.9 and times 100%, which equals 9.03%. Note that the number of marginally attached workers is calculated as what we did for U5. That is 8.1 minus 6.2 equals 1.9. There is always some level of unemployment, even when the economy is performing well. In this section, we will discuss the different types of unemployment. 1. Frictional unemployment, which is the unemployment that results because it takes time for workers to search for the jobs that best suit their tastes and skills. It is a voluntary transition within the economy. This type of unemployment is short-term for most workers. Please note that in a recession, frictional unemployment is at a low level because workers are afraid to lose their current job. For example, consider the grace period after graduation that college students need to look for a job. 2. Structural unemployment, which is a mismatch between what companies need and what the available workers can offer. It results when wages are set above the equilibrium level. This type of unemployment is usually long-term. For example, you can look at the transition from farming to industrial production, from manual work to computer, and now to AI. 3. Cyclical unemployment reflects shifts in investment sentiments due to changes in the real business cycle or a deviation of unemployment from its natural rate. If we take the difference between the unemployment rate and the natural rate of unemployment, we arrive at cyclical unemployment. For example, during the 2008-2009 Great Recession, business layoffs caused by the housing crisis led many construction workers to lose their jobs. Cyclical unemployment requires economic policies to address and mitigate its effects. Let's consider the natural rate of unemployment, also known as full employment, which is not zero unemployment. It is the normal rate of unemployment around which the unemployment rate fluctuates. When the economy is at steady state, the natural rate of unemployment is equal to a combination of frictional unemployment and structural unemployment. In this section, we're going to discuss the important aspect of our labor market. Some frictional unemployment is inevitable because the economy is always changing. There are sectoral shifts, which are changes in the composition of demand among industries or regions, as well as changing patterns of international trade. This dynamism ensures that there will always be some level of frictional unemployment. Workers differ from one another in terms of their skills and tastes, and jobs differ in their attributes. This makes it challenging for workers to find the right match. To help with this, government-run employment agencies provide valuable information about job vacancies. Public training programs are also essential as they ease workers' transition from declining to growing industries and help disadvantaged groups escape poverty. Unemployment Insurance Benefit is a crucial government program that partially protects the incomes of workers who become unemployed. It is designed for those who were laid off because employers no longer need their skills. However, it is important to note that those who quit their job, were fired for cause, or just enter the job market are not eligible for this benefit. Here in this section, let's discuss another significant cause of unemployment: minimum wage laws. When the minimum wage is set above the equilibrium wage, it creates a situation where there are more people willing to work at that wage than there are jobs available, leading to a labor surplus. This means that while some workers benefit from higher wages, others may find themselves unemployed because employers cannot afford to hire as many workers. The least skilled and least experienced workers, such as teenagers, are the most affected by this policy, as they often struggle to find jobs that match their skills and experience. Additionally, some workers might be unemployed because they are waiting for better job opportunities to become available, rather than taking the first job they find. Now, take a look at the graph. Imagine the government sets a minimum wage, which is above the equilibrium wage. At this higher wage level, the labor demand, which represents the number of jobs available, is less than the labor supply, which represents the number of workers. This mismatch creates a surplus of labor, meaning there are more workers than there are jobs. As a result, unemployment rises. When wages are kept above the equilibrium level, it can lead to unemployment. This situation can occur due to the influence of labor unions, in addition to minimum wage laws. Union is worker association that negotiates with employers over wages, benefits, and working conditions. They can cause wages to rise above the equilibrium level. However, union can be viewed as inequitable because some workers benefit, such as those who keep their jobs with higher pay, while others lose out, especially those who may be unemployed due to reduced labor demand. Although unions play a smaller role in the U.S. economy today compared to the past, they remain quite prevalent in many European countries. Here are some examples of prominent unions: the National Education Association, which represents public school teachers; the Service Employees International Union, representing healthcare workers; the United Auto Workers, which includes workers in the automobile and farming equipment industries; the Teamsters, represent truck drivers and warehouse workers. Let's take on the quiz. Question number 1. Minimum wages create unemployment in markets where they create what? Unemployment can occur because of minimum wage laws. When the minimum wage is set above the equilibrium wage in the labor market, a surplus of labor results. This means more people are willing to work at a higher wage than there are jobs available, leading to unemployment. While minimum wage laws contribute to unemployment, they affect only a small percentage of the labor force and can cause structural unemployment in specific segments of the market. Thus, the answer is D, surplus of labor. Unemployment of this type is called structural. Question number 2. If the natural rate of unemployment is 5.7% and the actual rate of unemployment is 6.1%, and by definition, there is what? Please be recalled that cyclical unemployment is the deviation of the actual unemployment rate from its natural rate. To calculate cyclical unemployment, we take actual unemployment rate minus natural rate of unemployment. Substituting the given values equals 6.1% minus 5.7% equals 0.4%. So there is 0.4% cyclical unemployment. Thus the answer is A, cyclical unemployment amounting to 0.4% of the labor force. Question number 3. If an unemployed person quits looking for work, then eventually the unemployment rate happens what? The unemployment rate is calculated as the number of unemployed individuals actively seeking work divided by the total labor force, expressed as a percentage. When an unemployed person stops looking for work, they are no longer counted as part of the labor force. This reduction in the number of unemployed individuals reduces the numerator in the unemployment rate calculation. Since the labor force or the denominator also decreases, the overall effect is a lower unemployment rate. It is the same as the labor force participation rate because of a fall of labor force. So the answer is B. The unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate both decrease. Question number 4. Cyclical unemployment refers to what? Cyclical unemployment refers to the fluctuations in the unemployment rate that occur due to changes in the real business cycle. It represents the deviation of the actual unemployment rate from the natural rate of unemployment, which is caused by economic downturns, recessions, or periods of slow economic growth. So the answer is B, short-run fluctuations around the natural rate of unemployment. Question number 5. Sam has no job but keeps applying to get a job with a business that is unionized. He is qualified and he finds the pay attractive, but the firm is not hiring. In this case, Sam is considered structurally unemployed. Structural unemployment occurs when there is a mismatch between the skills that workers have and the skills needed for available jobs. In Sam's case, he is qualified and willing to work, but the firm he is applying to is not hiring, which indicates a surplus of labor in that particular market or sector. Additionally, structural unemployment typically lasts in the long run. So the answer is A. Sam is structurally unemployed. Structural unemployment exists even in the long run. Now let's undertake the case study. Case study number 1. Mismatch as a source of structural unemployment. In this case study, we explore how mismatches between job seekers and firms can lead to structural unemployment. Consider the following scenarios where such mismatches occur. 1. Mismatch in skills. Suppose we have a situation where workers are trained as truck drivers, but firms are looking to hire computer technicians. This discrepancy creates a gap in the labor market, where there are plenty of truck drivers but not enough computer technicians. 2. Mismatch in education. Imagine a scenario where many workers have dropped out of high school, yet firms are seeking college graduates. The lack of alignment between the educational qualifications of job seekers and the requirements of employers creates another form of structural unemployment. 3. Geographic mismatch. Consider workers who are tech-savvy and living in Tennessee, but firms are hiring tech-savvy individuals in Silicon Valley, California. This geographic mismatch means that while there may be skilled workers available, they are not in the locations where firms are hiring. In response to these mismatches, wages for truck drivers, high school dropouts, and tech-savvy workers in Tennessee would generally fall because there is an oversupply of workers relative to the demand for their skills. Conversely, wages for computer technicians, college graduates, and tech-savvy workers in Silicon Valley, California would rise due to a higher demand relative to the supply of qualified candidates. In the real world, wages do not always adjust quickly or fully to these changes in demand and supply. Consequently, this misalignment leads to a surplus of truck drivers, high school dropouts, and tech-savvy workers living in Tennessee who are unable to find suitable employment despite their availability and skills. This situation exemplifies how structural unemployment can persist even when there are unemployed individuals ready and willing to work. Let's take a look at case study number 2, which covers a recent CNBC's jobs report. I encourage you to read the full article to grasp the detailed context. For now, here's a brief summary of the key takeaways. Key points. The US added non-farm 73,000 jobs in July. That's more than June, but still less than expected. May and June job numbers were revised down by over 250,000. This means past job growth was weaker than we thought. Because of this weak report, the Federal Reserve might lower interest rates in September. Almost all job growth, 94%, came from healthcare and social assistance sectors.